Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Everything is Bad New Fangled Motion Picture Show.
Can you imagine being at war for 100 years?
I can imagine hating the French for 100 years.
Well, it's actually 116 years.
Yeah, well, round it off.
Yep. Welcome, one and all, to another episode of the Everything is Bad New Fangled Motion Picture Show. I'm your host, Niall.
And I'm Nolan.
And that part Nolan's definitely leaving in, so if you can't figure out from our question, or our statement about the 100 Years' War, we're reviewing The Last Duel.
The Duel.
Are you going to keep saying it like that throughout
like Adam Driver says ghoul.
And The Dead Don't Die?
Yeah.
Anyway, so before we get too into it, just going to say we will do a spoiler-free review, and then we'll give you a spoiler warning at some point, and then we'll get more in-depth into it after that. So, without further ado, so this movie, as soon as I saw the poster, like well before I saw the trailer, I was like, Ridley Scott, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, I'm in. A very similar thing happened when I saw the poster for House of Gucci, by the way.
Yeah. Matt Damon's not in that one, though.
He's not in that one, no. But that cast is also pretty stacked. But anyway, so yeah, this movie takes place in the late 1300s in France, in Normandy specifically,
mostly.
Yeah. So
it does go into Paris, which I don't think is in Normandy. But it is in northern France.
Yep. So anyway, this movie, it's about a rape accusation and ruined friendships, and like basically it comes down to this grudge, or this like court case basically being settled by via trial by combat.
So it's also based on true events.
Yeah.
And
a novel written about those events.
Yeah, but from what little research I did, it seems that this movie is pretty accurate.
Much more accurate than these types of movies tend to be, anyway.
Yeah,
they massage the timeline a bit to make things flow better for a movie, but like pretty much all the events that are in here happened.
Yeah. So, one of the things with the timeline is it's not always clear that significant amounts of time have passed.
Yeah. There's a few times though where it splashes the
it'll
date.
Splash a date up, but then sometimes you're like, it'll go a while, and then it's like, yeah, that happened 5 years ago. Like, oh, all right, I didn't know that much time had passed. Or whatever.
Yeah. Like you sort of have to infer by the context that several years have passed since the last time they told you what year it was. But so this movie's like I said, it's about this like court case about a rape accusation, and it's being told the point of view of three different people, and it's told in three different parts. First, the truth of the matter as viewed by Jean de Carouge,
Matt Damon's character.
Yep. Then the truth according to Jacques Legris,
Adam Driver.
And despite our heritage, like I'm probably pronouncing some of this wrong, but
yeah,
is weird Norman, as it turns out. But anyway, and then the truth according to Marguerite de Carouge, which is also the actual truth, or at least in the movie, it's presented as the actual truth. Now,
right? They don't. I mean, in reality, nobody knows for certain which truth is the actual truth. This is all just based off of testimony, and like records that were kept during the trial.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like the trial itself took months, and in the movie, it's just kind of presented like a day.
Yeah, it's like it feels like it's like a week, maybe.
Right. But it actually took months to get through.
Like it sort of feels like, because where the stories all converge is in the court in front of the king, So it's like the story up to that point is being told by that character to the court.
Right. And so this movie is called The Last Duel because it's the last time in history where a court case was settled in France with a duel.
Yes.
And there was like this whole process. Like you had to have the entire court present. They had to have a trial. If
there was no satisfactory
result, then a duel could happen with the king's permission.
Yeah. And I mean, this whole thing was
and then at that point, whoever wins, it's in God's hands.
Right. The idea being that, yeah,
God would have the winner.
God would
win.
make sure, yeah, whoever
the righteous person would win, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is France in the 1300s, so of course the Catholic Church is very involved in the court proceedings.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it is a very good movie. It's a very Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah, if you'd shown me this movie and didn't tell me it was Ridley Scott, I probably would have guessed that it was
and also remove the Scott-free bumper from the beginning.
Oh, well, yeah, Scott-free. Yeah, get rid of that too. Because it has this very similar vibe to other movies he's done set in this time period, like Kingdom of Heaven and Robin Hood, The Untold Story, or whatever it was subtitled.
Yeah.
It just has that similar feel to it, and
which was that Russell Crowe, right?
Yeah.
I'm a Russell Crowe Batman apologist. Why I say Batman? Robin Hood.
I don't know why you would say Batman. Because you're thinking of Ben Affleck.
Well, because I was looking at when I was talking, I was looking at an ad for the Batman here on IMDb. Anyway.
So, yeah, and I said my one thing that I just felt weird is I felt like, so Ben Affleck has this like blonde hair and it looks fake.
Yeah.
To me. Like it looks bleached. Like it's that weird yellow color that bleached hair gets that doesn't look real. And that's kind of how his hair looks in the movie. So I don't know what that was about.
What I found like interesting about Ben Affleck in this though is that I almost didn't recognize him.
Yeah, well, between the hair and that like little goatee thing he had going.
Yeah. Like Matt Damon, I looked at it and went, that's just Matt Damon like with a mullet.
And scar makeup.
Yeah. But Ben Affleck, when I first saw him, I was like, wait, is that Ben Affleck's character? Yeah, it is. When he started talking, it was like, yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Right now it's enjoying a 7.7 on IMDb. And like we said, I can't.
It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of. There is fighting, and what fighting there is, it's intense.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of it.
Yeah. So like, I can't speak for. I'm not super well versed on like fighting techniques of this time period, other than like, I could tell you from what I understand, all the knights at the very first scene is a battle against the British in Normandy at a river, and from what I understand, all those knights should have had a lot more hammers and axes than they had. They were all armed with swords, but and I can tell you the
swords were relatively expensive to make
compared
to hammers and axes.
And hammers and axes deal with armored knights better than a sword does.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Matt Damon doing half sword stuff, which I thought was cool. Like you don't see that in movies a lot.
And some improvised weaponry here and there, like where at one point he gets disarmed.
He like rips the chainmail off of some dude's head and like wraps it around his fist and is punching someone with it. Yeah, because he
gets disarmed in this fight.
Yeah, the fight scenes are pretty brutal. And the duel itself is very brutal. And I will say though, from what I understand, the weird half visor thing that they have, you can see it in the trailers, not a thing.
Yeah, well, like you suggested, it's probably so we know who the actor is.
Yeah, so that
even though they are color coded.
Right, but on the close-up shots,
right.
you couldn't tell. You couldn't see, especially because everything has like a gray filter over it.
Yeah, because it's just miserable all the time in this movie. There are 2 sunny days shown.
Yeah.
And the entire movie.
One's right at the end.
One's right at the end. It's like the last scene of the movie. And one, you just see it through a doorway. They're like inside a chapel, and you just see through a doorway this like sunny day.
Are you talking about when his wife's talking to his mom?
Yeah.
In the chapel? Yeah.
And that's it. And it's like it's just miserable. My understanding of Normandy is that it's overcast a good portion of the year. And a lot of this movie takes place in the fall and winter.
Yeah.
One thing that is interesting, since it's told from 3 different points of view, the scenes that overlap are subtly different.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. So
what they say is different, or because like in the story,
to avoid spoilers.
Yeah.
I think we'll give an example of that very first scene.
Okay.
So because it's not like I said, it's literally the first scene.
And this isn't an important.
It's not an important. It's not important to the like overall story. So,
the difference isn't important.
Right, the differences are not important. Yeah. So Adam Driver and Matt Damon are at this river crossing, and they're told they do not leave this. Do not go down there and fight those British. You stay here, hold this crossing against the British, and prevent them from taking this town. Except the British have a bunch of hostages, and they're like killing them in front of the French. And so Matt Damon is like, "We can't. My honor will not allow this." Blah blah blah, and like shouts for the king and charges off down the hill. And all of his soldiers follow him right away down the hill. And like there's some intense fighting. At one point, Matt Damon saves Adam Driver's life. Later on, when we see the same scene from Adam Driver's point of view, there's this whole conversation that happens between Adam Driver and like one of Matt Damon's other like lieutenants or whatever. That
it was his father.
Oh, was his father? Okay, yeah.
He says, my son's an idiot.
Yeah, he said, yeah, that's right. He goes, my son's an idiot, and Adam Driver's like, yeah, but if we don't go down there, he's gonna die. And then they charge off, and Matt Damon does not shout for the king on his charge, and Adam Driver saves Matt Damon's life.
Right. So each one's story makes them look better,
right,
than what likely actually happened.
There's one scene that you see from all 3 perspectives specifically that I thought I really liked the differences on that one. And we'll get into that in the spoiler section. You probably know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think I do.
It's another situation where it's like the events play out almost the same.
But if you're not paying attention, you might not even notice that it was different.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I mean, also there's like 40 minutes between them or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, also, this is a very long movie. Be prepared for that. It's over 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
So I think it was longer than that, or as long as that James Bond movie.
I think a little bit longer, wasn't it?
It could be. But, so, I thought that was really neat, just the way
James Bond was longer. It was like almost 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But I really enjoyed how they did that, and like changed things subtly, to sort of each character sort of just making themselves out to be better from their point of view. Either by like the things they say, particularly a lot of stuff involving like, pro king stuff. And then, sort of changing how, like, the sort of reaction characters have to certain things. And yeah, I thought that was really cool, really well handled. And so you were saying reading into it, the duel itself is actually pretty accurate to the eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, so there was a couple eyewitness accounts that are on record, and the way they describe the duel, it is different. It's not exactly the same, but a lot of the important things that happen, like they happened the way it was, in the movie happened the way it was described in these eyewitness accounts. Like the way they both get unseated from their horses is different. But like the final, like what kills the loser,
yeah,
that was accurate, and then several other things were like straight from the eyewitness accounts.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And like a lot of the events, like as far as the events that are being told by these characters, like we get that information from like people's journals and stuff, like talking about, writing about these events, because this was big. Like this was like the big gossip of French nobility at the time.
Yeah, everyone in France knew about this. Thousands of people showed up to watch this duel.
Yeah,
and it had been taken months in the court, and I'd read something that was left out of the movie, and it's not important. But when the king declares that the duel will happen, he declares when it will happen because he wanted to be there to see it, but he had to go on campaign, and he was going to be gone for a few months. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like since the whole court had to be there, this whole thing is being witnessed by a bunch of educated men,
like literate
people. So a lot of them are, and a lot of those men kept diaries at that time.
Plus, all the members, like high-ranking members of the clergy, would have been there to record it anyway.
Right. And so there's apparently a lot of like firsthand witness accounts of the trial, and so that's where we get apparently as far as like the novel that is based on these events. That's where they got a lot of that information.
Yeah, and like the primary defense lawyer, he took meticulous notes apparently.
Yeah,
and he just like wrote everything down and all the events that happened. And apparently he even believed that his client was guilty.
So yeah, I definitely recommend seeing this movie, especially because like next weekend's gonna be a busy one. See it now, or this coming weekend. So we got Dune coming up.
Yeah, we do.
So definitely recommend checking this movie out if you haven't already. Like I said, it's Ridley Scott. The cast is stacked. It's a very intriguing movie. Like, I mean, it's a drama for sure, but it keeps your attention the whole time.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit.
There are a couple fight scenes because they show a couple scenes.
They're pretty brutal.
Yeah, because Jean de Carouge.
And it does show the act in question.
Yeah, so like if you're, twice. Yeah, so if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, maybe avoid that.
Yeah.
So, but it also just Jean de Carouge went to fight a lot. He fought. I mean, this is during the 100 Years' War, and so he went and fought quite a bit in actuality. Like he was constantly going out on campaign because every time a landed noble went and fought for the king, he got paid for it.
He also got to keep whatever
loot
or hostages and then ransom those hostages back. That's an important part of the economy for a noble. Is if you captured any knights, you could ransom them back to their families
or their lieges.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways to make money if you go out and fight and come back.
Yeah.
And then in actuality, he died in the Crusades a few years after the events of this.
Yep. So anyway, anything else to say before we get into spoiler section?
No.
All right. So putting a spoiler warning right here.
Yeah.
So there's a scene, the scene I was talking about earlier. Jacques Legris and Jean de Carouge, they were buddies at the beginning, and they were best friends.
Legris was the godfather to de Carouge's son before his son died of the plague.
Yeah, like they were that close, and so, they have a falling out because Legris is best buddies with Count Pierre
Count Pierre
d'Alencon.
Sorry, French people.
But don't apologize to the French.
Okay. If they wanted a pronounceable language, they could have done it a long time ago.
Yeah, like if they wanted us to pronounce their names correctly, they would get rid of all the letters they don't use. All right. Anyway, so, he's best buddies, or he's like really good friends with Pierre and the Count, who is the liege of the both of them, and Pierre doesn't really like Carouge because he's illiterate. He's a very serious and dour kind of man, which I mean makes sense if you've seen as much war and death as he has at that point.
Right.
So,
but Pierre is a party animal.
Yeah, and so he likes Jacques Legris. He's buddies with him, and so he just gives things to him.
Right, and some of it was meant So when Carouge gets remarried, there was a piece of land that was supposed to be part of the dowry from his wife. Well, before that could happen, Jacques comes along. Legris comes along. He's been charged with collecting taxes.
Yep.
For Pierre, and he takes that piece of land as payment, and then Pierre gives it to him. So
without knowing that it was intended for the dowry, mind you.
Well, Pierre didn't know, but Legris did.
Right, Legris.
But he didn't know that Carouge was marrying.
Right, he didn't know that the dowry in question was for Carouge.
Right, and if he had known that, he might have done something. He might have taken a different piece of land. Who knows? Because at that point, they weren't. He was still considered him a friend.
Yeah.
He didn't know. He knew that it was for this lord's daughter's dowry. He didn't know that she was marrying Carouge. So that's like the first thing, and then also.
So he sues over the piece of land, though.
Right. Well,
Carouge does.
Yeah, Carouge sues over the piece of land, but Pierre. Technically, it was never his. Once Pierre seized it, he legally owned it.
Right. It was at no point the property of Carouge. Because it was seized before the dowry.
Before the wedding.
Yeah.
Happened. And then also, Carouge's father is the captain of this garrison, and his father was the captain's garrison.
At this fort.
Yeah, this fort. It goes back generations. He was expecting to be made captain of this fort as well. But since Pierre doesn't like him, he gives it to Jacques.
Yep.
So, again, just stuff keeps happening. They're starting, or Carouge is starting to not like his friend. I think Legris still kind of considers him a friend. He just is not purposely doing anything yet, I don't think, to harm him.
Yeah. Well, and because he, the first thing was suing over because he sued both Legris and Pierre over the land, and so that was the first thing.
That was the first thing,
and that Legris, that went back on Legris from that Carouge, did against Legris. I think it's sort of the turning point was,
showing up when he was being made captain.
Yeah, that feels like that was sort of a turning point. Although he does kind of try to make it a point later to not when Carouge comes back from Scotland and Legris, he came back having lost, and Legris tries to say no one blames you, that felt like an olive branch of sorts. And
right, but you notice, and this is all. But all these things are happening from Legris' perspective, which makes Carouge out to be petulant.
Yeah. And
we don't know how petulant he was actually behaving.
Right.
He very well could have been that petulant, but we don't know, because this is from Legris' point of view. None of these scenes are ever shown from Carouge's point of view. These two scenes. No,
when he shows up at the garrison, that was shown from
Right,
Carouge's.
but it was cut off. you don't see much of it, and then you get him telling his wife what happened.
Right. Yeah.
It cuts to him telling his wife what
That's right.
The story of what happened.
Yeah, well, she's washing his feet.
Right. So
I remember the scene.
You don't see what really might have happened. I kind of get the feeling though that on these points Legree is maybe accurate or fairly accurate.
Yeah.
And but anyway,
but you need to know that to know the context of the scene in question that I really liked as far as showing differences between the stories.
This is like one of the few that's told from all three.
Yeah. So, Legree is having his first child.
No, it's not Legree's child. It's Crespin's child.
Oh, it's Crespin's child.
But everyone's there to celebrate his child, and Legree was there.
Right. And so Carouge comes in. His wife is there.
First time Legree has seen her.
Right. First time Legree has seen Carouge's very pretty wife.
He's smitten with her. He's
smitten. Legree comes over, though, and holds his hand out. And Carouge grabs his hand, and from Carouge's point of view, he says Carouge greets Legree and says, basically says no hard feelings. Right now, the king needs all of his men.
And then Legree says, "Hear, hear,
hear, hear." Yeah, and then Legree's minion is like, "Well said, my lord," and then. From Legree's point of view, Legree greets Carouge, says the same basic thing of right now, no hard feelings. Right now, the king needs all of his men.
And then Carouge says, "Hear, hear."
Right.
And
then Legree's minion says, "Well said, my lord." And then from his wife's point of view, from Marguerite's point of view, they come up. They sort of. I think Legree actually holds his hand out first, and Carouge grabs it, and then Legree's minion says the thing about the king needing all his men.
Yeah.
And starts clapping.
Right, and they all they did was just say each other's names as greeting, but nothing else.
I thought that was really interesting. Showing that difference.
And then also,
I also thought I hypothesized too that at that river they each saved each other's life.
Right.
And then just left it out of the telling.
Yeah.
Of their telling of events.
Right. I agree with that. And then then one of the other things
because where they saved each other's lives are at different points in that fight. They don't conflict
it doesn't conflict with anything, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the rape scene, first you see it from
Legree's
point of view, and it's obviously a rape, but then you see it from Marguerite's point of view, and it's much more violent.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to watch.
It's uncomfortable.
Which is the point.
Yeah, which is the point. I mean, you're watching a rape.
Mm-hmm.
That should be uncomfortable. If that's not uncomfortable for you, seek help.
Right.
So,
but it's the first time it's to a point where Legree's able to convince himself that no, it was just because she's married, it was just a token.
Yeah, she gave the token denial.
Yeah, the token denial, but then she actually wanted it to happen.
Yeah,
that's what he convinces himself of,
or at least that's what his story is of, anyway.
Right.
So I just realized something unrelated to the movie. I hope YouTube doesn't flag our video.
Oh.
Because he's using the word rape.
Yeah.
We're going to find out. You might have to go in and bleep that word out.
Dang.
I'll try to minimize using it from here on out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
One thing, and that is definitely historically inaccurate, is whenever they visit Paris in this, they're showing Notre Dame under construction. When this movie happens, Notre Dame had already been completed for 40 years.
1377, I think, was the first year.
Right, but it got finished in 1330-something.
Yeah.
So...
Also, the list field they have this duel on is, in shouting distance of Notre Dame.
And also very much a permanent structure, where in reality it was held on the lawn. They built a wooden palisade structure for people to watch and enclose it, on the lawn of an abbey in the northern part of Paris. I don't know like how far from Notre Dame that was, but it was like described as the northern suburbs of Paris or something.
Yeah. I think the whole point of having Notre Dame though there was so that you instantly, without them having to splash the location on the screen every time they go to Paris, you know it's Paris.
But what I don't understand is why they have it under construction when it was completed for years by that point.
Yeah, that's a weird one. But also something that the movie gets a little bit wrong is Pierre, way more petty, way bigger asshole in reality.
Yeah, well, I can
than he is in the movie.
Where they wouldn't bother like covering some of the stuff that he did, some of the petty things he did against Carouge, just for time's sake.
Yeah,
there's just so much of it.
Yeah, it was bad. Carouge, like, apparently from the time of the lawsuit forward was never able to buy land.
He wasn't even able to inherit some land that was coming. That
should have been his.
Should have been his, and because Pierre blocked it all.
Yeah,
Pierre was also cousin to the king, so he had like a lot of power and influence. But in one of the problems with the medieval like feudal system is he is the court. Like if you have any sort of legal issue, you have to go to
your liege,
and if he doesn't like you, you're not going to get a fair because he makes all the decisions. It's not like there's a jury.
Yeah, which is why Carouge went straight to the king to request trial by combat.
Right.
Because he knew that Pierre was gonna block him.
Mm-hmm.
For the rape.
They also spread the story as much as they could, so that basically it forced the hand of the king. He has to let it happen because everyone has heard of this event.
Yeah.
And he can't just sweep it under the rug. That would be politically bad. So, I don't know. Is there anything else to talk about? Oh, Jean de Carouge wins the.
Yeah,
wins the duel, by the way.
So okay, and here's the thing: is like, we very much, like, it's all like, oh, who's right here about this? By every account, every telling of events, Legree definitely assaulted Marguerite.
Yes.
Like the R word, Marguerite, 100%. Like, if the movie is at all accurate about Legree's testimony, it 100% happened. Now, whether how severe of an assault it was, I guess is what's sort of up for debate.
According to the real testimony by Marguerite, Legree's like man, the guy that was like always at his side, was also there holding her down while it happened.
Right. They didn't show that in the movie.
They didn't show that in the movie, but according to the real life testimony, that's what happened.
Yeah. So, and like a big argument his argument is it's infidelity, it's not the R word.
Right. His argument is that she wanted it to happen.
Yeah, his argument is like, no, we had an affair, but she wanted it. And the main argument is she got pregnant, and a woman can't get pregnant if she doesn't orgasm.
This was a belief, apparently.
Yeah.
It's funny when they bring this up, like all the women in the courtroom are kind of like looking sidelong at each other, like.
Can you believe this shit? Right. Yeah, and since she's pregnant, clearly she had to have an orgasm, which means she liked it.
So it couldn't have been rape.
Right. That's an argument. One of the ministers or something says like that's just science. And so you saw this movie twice. The first time without me.
Right.
And
you were busy.
And you were telling me about this, and you said, yeah, and like one guy in the court's like, you can't get pregnant if you don't orgasm. That's just science. I thought you were paraphrasing.
Nope. That was a direct quote.
I thought you were making a joke and paraphrasing what the intent of his statement was. No, they actually say those words. It's incredible. So
it is pretty great. That's just science.
By the way, in case you failed your health class in high school, you don't need to have an orgasm as a woman to get pregnant. Don't believe that and then go, what happened?
Right.
So, yeah, and the duel at the end is like, it's very, very brutal, very visceral, like real, like just like
really
real
bloody,
meaty impacts of stuff.
If
two horses die.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have a problem with seeing horses injured and killed
in pretty brutal ways.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them just straight up takes a lance to the chest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like they get down on the ground and like are in the mud and stuff. It's pretty brutal. Very satisfying though when you finally get to see that duel happen.
Right. The movie actually opens with them like preparing like for the duel, and
like they start their first charge, I think.
Yeah, because it starts with a joust, and then when they both get dehorsed, they unsaddled, rather.
Unsaddled, yeah.
Then it turns to a hand-to-hand combat.
I guess they also technically got dehorsed because their horses were killed.
Yeah. That's something that was a little bit different. I was reading about how that happened.
Like their horses were
killed during it, but
yeah,
which it's a little bit different.
What happened was more or less reversed, right?
Yeah, and then also there's a part because when Legree gets knocked over, his horse falls on him and he's trapped under it for a minute. But that didn't happen according to the eyewitness. His horse was killed. And he was thrown from the saddle, but the horse didn't land on him.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's like I do think it's pretty interesting that they actually bothered to keep things like to that level of accuracy. That some things are a little different, to play up for cinematic reasons.
Yeah, make it more exciting.
More exciting, or just look better on screen or whatever. But that, like the way he died, like you mentioned. So at the end, Carouge is on top of Legree, and he's like trying to force a dagger down onto him, and he's shouting at him, admit your crime or whatever, and
confess.
Confess, and Legree says, there was no R word.
He says, I swear on my soul.
Yeah, he's like if I'm wrong, may my soul be damned to. And
he says, then you'll be damned or something.
Yeah.
He actually said that according to this.
That's pretty cool.
That's what they said, apparently.
Dude, like that, man, you gotta be feeling like a baller, because like when you're in the heat of something like that, your mind doesn't think of like witty comebacks.
Yeah.
And like unless you're Spider-Man.
He had this like injury to his inner thigh.
Oh yeah, he was bleeding out from a thigh injury.
Yeah, that happened as well.
Yeah, and so that's pretty badass though, to be able to whip that comeback out in the middle of that.
Yeah, well, he was probably had so much adrenaline he wasn't feeling the pain. But
I mean, even like when you're hopped up on that much of adrenaline in a fight, like
you don't think
you don't think you don't think of comebacks like that. So that's pretty cool. And that he was able to say that. But yeah, I think it's probably pretty much all we really have to say about The Last Duel.
Yeah, we've talked quite a bit on this one.
It was a good movie. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I have a lot to say on the Dune one too. I'm guessing.
I hope so. Because if we don't have much to say on it, it's because it's really bad. Like if it's
just a forgettable movie usually. I mean, so we can something if it's really bad, then we usually have something to say about it. But sometimes
that's true.
It's a level of bad. It's just kind of forgettable.
Like Cry Macho.
Yeah.
Like that movie, we had so little to say about it. We just didn't even bother reviewing it.
Yeah, we just stuck it into whatever other movie we reviewed. Like, oh, here's our review.
Yeah. So let's see here. So this next, like the next movie we're gonna do, is Dune. That's the next movie we're seeing for sure. Next weekend, or this coming weekend, is also The French Dispatch and Ron's Gone Wrong. Actually, no, okay. The French Dispatch, I think, is a limited release. Okay. I think it's like 2 showings, or 2 theaters in town showing it. Its full release is Halloween weekend, I think.
Okay.
So we might not be seeing French Dispatch this weekend. But there's also Ron's Gone Wrong, which is like baby's first cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Like, dealing with like AI and like, you know, at what point is an AI like an actual person and that sort
also,
of.
I think this like AI is also tied in a lot to like social media stuff.
So that I think that's going to be a more meta and more interesting movie than people are expecting it to be.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so we're planning to see that, and then I guess probably French Dispatch the following weekend. Then November we got Eternals, which we're not real excited about, but it's the next. What the hell is this? Riverdance the Animated Adventure? Sorry, I got distracted by that. I'm just like going through the coming soon section on IMDb. It saw that. Oh, wow. Come on, dude. We gotta fight. We gotta seek that out.
I hope there's a trailer.
Oh, man. Anyway, we're not seeing... I don't think we're seeing Clifford.
No.
I think the next movie we're seeing after Eternals, unless we're gonna see this Riverdance movie, is Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then House of Gucci. Are we seeing Enchanto? I don't even really know what it's about. I haven't seen a trailer yet.
Probably should take Mom to see it.
Yeah. I considering the lack of advertising for it, I don't think Disney has a lot of faith in it. Because we're a month out from it. We would be seeing ads everywhere.
Yeah.
And then December, we finally get Spider-Man and The King's Man, and then Matrix Resurrections, and a Macbeth movie starring Denzel Washington.
All right.
The Tragedy of Macbeth. Scottish lord becomes convinced by a trio of witches that he will become the next king of Scotland, and his ambitious wife supports him in his plans to seize power. That's Macbeth. That's Macbeth.
Yeah.
It's called The Tragedy of Macbeth. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's about like someone trying to put on a Macbeth play like that.
It's one of those cursed plays,
right? But like that Don Quixote movie, another cursed production.
Yeah.
With Adam Driver, where it was about someone trying to make a Don Quixote. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a movie, right? It was like he was like making a commercial and then went on this weird existential trip.
He made a Don Quixote movie.
Right, that's what it was.
It was like he was back in the same
area of Spain. Yeah, that's right. But so I was thinking, well, maybe it's something like that. But that description, like that's just the plot to Macbeth.
Yeah, how come Denzel Washington can be Scottish Lord Macbeth, but I can't be Othello?
You got to do the photo negative Othello. Right, is that what they called that?
Yeah, where Patrick Stewart was Othello, but all the other roles were black actors.
And I was like, just to be sure, let's see what Denzel Washington's actually playing in this.
Lord Macbeth.
Lord Macbeth.
All right.
Frances McDermott playing Lady Macbeth.
Ugh. Look, I like Frances McDermott as an actress.
Dude, what was that last movie?
I do not find her attractive.
What was that last movie she was in that just looked like the most like art house piece of trash?
That was
Nomadland?
Yes, that's what it was.
Ugh.
And apparently, I guess you did a nude scene in that too, and I was like, well, I hadn't planned on seeing it, but now I really do.
Now I'm actively avoiding it.
Yeah. Like I said, I like her as an actress. I don't find her attractive at all.
She looks like in her like profile picture here on IMDb, she looks like Christopher Walken's younger brother.
It's not very flattering description.
But look at her! Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I see it. Yeah.
But anyways, that's what we got closing out the year. And then this movie is also a movie here starring Peter Dinklage called Cyrano.
I saw the poster for that.
Yeah.
Cyrano, that's not a Shakespearean character, isn't it?
Let's see. No. Edmund Rostand is the writing credit that says in parentheses play. It's got Ben Mendelsohn in it too. Anyway, so yeah, I haven't seen a trailer for that yet. But it's got Peter Dinklage, so like I'll at least watch the trailer and decide if it's something I want to see. And that's what we got closing out the year. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, hit that bell or subscribe or whatever it is you need to do these days. I'm at a point now with YouTube, man, where I just like go and like directly to the channels and see like what new videos they have up.
Yeah.
I don't bother like letting YouTube tell me when there's new videos from those channels. 'Cause I don't even know what it takes to get it to show me the things I want to see. But yeah, so hit the bell, I guess, or subscribe, whatever it is you need to do. Check out our other reviews. What was the last one we did?
What was the last one we did? It was No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Yeah. Next movie we're seeing is definitely Dune, though, and I gotta tell you, we've been excited for that movie since it was announced. So
a few years.
We have such expectations built up for this movie. And we wouldn't if Denny hadn't done such an incredible job with that Blade Runner sequel.
Yeah.
I mean, if it sucks, like if it doesn't meet our expectations, it's Blade Runner 2049's fault. Is that fair?
That's fair.
That's fair to say? Okay. So, hoping it's incredible. Also, that cast, super stacked. Like, that is an incredible cast for that movie.
Yeah, I'm real excited.
Yep. So, come back next week, I guess. Check that out. I get the feeling that's going to be another episode that's like near an hour long.
How long have we been talking?
Yeah, 50 minutes.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to trim a little bit off the front, but not that much. So, yeah, until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Toodles.